Hey, Asher.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to Season 3 of What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by Asher Laub. Asher is a classically trained violinist and began performing with the Buffalo Philharmonic at the age of 13. Since then, Asher's improvisation expertise across multiple genres has inspired an innovative career as a cutting-edge electric violinist. Asher has performed in Madison Square Garden, Hammerstein Hall, Lincoln Center, and the Jacob Javits Center. His diverse, multicultural repertoire has garnered acclaim across 4 continents, and his high-energy shows have been featured live on PBS and garnered publicity on CNN, WABC, NBC, and the New York Post. This week, Asher and I are going to explore his music and his personal story. For the best listening experience, I recommend tuning into the show on Spotify. There you can hear the music in the show with the songs we discuss incorporated. You can also find the show on Apple, Amazon Music, or wherever you stream. But if you're not listening on Spotify, be sure to give the playlist a listen and then tune into our conversation. With that, let's get started. Asher, we're both listening to your music this week, so let's jump in.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm super excited. This is a genre that we've not really featured on the show yet, electric violin music, and so I'm really interested not only in your music, but your personal story. So I'd love to dive in with the first song that we're going to talk about today, which is your song, Neon Dreams.
Yeah.
So tell me about this song. It's so interesting. I feel like that this song, a lot of your songs do this, but this song specifically sort of immediately transports me to somewhere else, right? Like sometimes it makes me feel like I'm in a video game. Other times I felt like I was in an 80s movie. And then it feels like I'm on a ride in an amusement park. Like I love it when music does that, when it literally takes me places in my mind that I can't get to through any other form of art. And just this kind of free form place of creativity is just where this song immediately transported me to. Tell me about this song. Tell me about how this came about. Is this an original song? Was this a cover? Tell me about this one.
Sure. Well, I'm really glad you like it. And it's probably one of my favorites. It is the song that actually launched my career as an independent artist. So Neon Dreams, quite literally, was the dream for me, regaining my strength, which I pretty much lost about 8 years ago due to adrenal insufficiency. So regaining my strength and ability to make music a career once again. So I had started professional performances in the tri-state and really, on the West Coast as well, different parts of the country, since 2001. And, I was working my way through college. And, at that point, I was pretty much I would say from 2001 to 2008, 2010, I was just performing for other people. And then I, thought, I'm really looking for more. I'm looking to connect with fans in a meaningful way. And that's where Neon Dream was born. So.
Wow. I'm curious, this will be a recurring theme throughout this episode, I'm sure, but I'm interested in how you manage like all of your creative talents without going crazy, right? Like you write, you perform, you collaborate. Like how are you able to balance all of those things when you're coming up with a song, especially one that feels as complex as Neon Dreams?
So I would say it's easiest. I mean, nothing's really easy, but it's easiest when I'm producing everything from scratch. So I'm pretty much, I give birth to the idea and then I mix and master everything from beginning to end. And then I release the song. I don't have to deal with, human capital, so to speak. So various personalities, but so that's probably, that's what I do in order to sort of keep the momentum up for my fans. Since my mission is to try to, I would say my goal is to to release an original single on a monthly basis. When I'm running out of time, I pump out a song, whether it's a symphony or like an EDM song, whatever. When I have a little bit of more time, I try to bring in other talent into the mix, such as in the case of Misirlou. I brought in Jeannie Luke and Johannes Gritchacher from Los Angeles. Hope I'm not like skipping the topic here, but I was kind of looking for more to what I had produced, and I wanted to just bring in other talent, and they enhanced the piece for me. So, but to answer your question more directly, I do have a lot of difficulty producing at the rate that I do, but it's kind of necessary because there's demand for the music. And there's a lot of hungry people out there. They want to hear more. They want to see more. And I don't sleep a lot.
I was going to say you must not. Well, and I just feel like flipping back and forth. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Like you do so many things that I've got to imagine. I think in one way it must feel empowering. In other ways, I feel like it must be like there must be times when you're like, you have to shut your brain down because there's so much going on in there. I mean, at least that's what your music says. I just like every song I listen to, it sounds so rich and it's so multi-layered. I think like, man, this guy must have so much going on in his head all the time.
Yeah, it can be painful at times. I would say I don't shut it down. I don't shut myself down, but my wife does. My family shut me down by just walking through my studio and running amok. Or my time isn't exactly my own, but there are a lot of layers to each of these songs. Even a song like Neon Dreams, but really, what most people are, I guess, don't necessarily understand is that the symphonies are the most complex. So
I would imagine. What an undertaking.
Like 40 to 50 pieces, and to pump that out like on a monthly basis is like a song like Shemesh or some of these medleys are pretty complex. So it's a lot of late nights pumping them out.
I would imagine. Well, another song that I love while we're talking about late nights, this is probably how you feel a lot of the time. Another song, our second pick here today, is really, it's hard for me to pick a favorite because I love all of your music and it all sounds so unique to me. But a song that really spoke to me from the first moment I heard it was Dreaming Awake. So I'm wondering if we can talk about that one for a second. And I think this is another original, right? This is not a cover.
Yeah, it's an original, and it's actually a song I gave permission to Lucida Services. They produced this pretty high-end commercial. It actually is also posted on my YouTube channel and like all these other channels. So that is a song that I produced, I think, 2 years ago. And
I think it said 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it got picked up. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I guess it got picked up for that commercial because it was pretty popular among, I guess, user generated content on social media. So there are well over a few million streams, just from like other artists and social media content creators that were using the song. So I guess Lucida took interest in it, and kind of like a dancey tune.
It's super dancey. It feels like that's why I was saying this to you before we started recording. It feels almost like a modern disco song, right? Like, and I feel like if you're on a dance floor when this song comes on, like people are going to go nuts. Like it's like electric violin EDM, right? And I didn't even know that was a genre, but I'm so happy that it is because I loved it. And I'm wondering when you created this song, did you have people dancing to it in mind when you put it together?
Yeah, I was, I guess, over the last 20 years since I kind of made music a professional career, my greatest interest was in the dance type scene as a violinist, which is in stark contrast to my upbringing as a classical musician. So Dreaming Awake is my attempt to make violin more mainstream in kind of the dance scene. And I've seen it work pretty successfully with, different clubs and among a variety of fans of different ages. And what's cool about it is there's no words. So it's something that's appealing to kids, to adolescents, people who are 80 years old, people who are, middle aged. And that's sort of my intention, is to kind of, and also to reach across, I guess, divides, like political divides, socio, whatever, religious, all these artificial divides that don't have to be there, and sort of brings people together.
I think this song is a perfect representation of that too, because it incorporates so many different kinds of genres, like for the young, for the old, for the middle-aged, for Americans, for people that are perhaps not from this country. It does feel like it has almost like a European or even like a Middle Eastern influence at some points during the song. So I agree. And I think that's I think that's why we're both here today, at least in some way, is that, we feel like music is sort of the great unifier, and I think that this song is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And that's definitely my end goal in being a producer, is to unify people, to help build a world of love and appreciation and just support for each other, as opposed to the divisions that are created by the media and whatnot. So that's my mission, to fight that.
Yeah, same. And I knew that we were aligned on that from the very first time we spoke. And so I love that. And I think that's also a great segue into our next song. And this one was a collaboration. And so I'm excited for you to talk a little bit more about this one too. But this was another one that was really different to me. The sound's kind of different than some of your other music. And it's a song called Subtle Pulse. And I believe you collaborated with Porter Singer. Is that the singer's name? Yeah.
Yeah. Originally, Sirgun Kaur. She's a well-known meditation producer, very popular under that name. And I think just recently she shifted to Porter Singer. Okay. I guess because that's regaining popularity. But anyway, we connected over an interview, and then she was interested in some sort of collaboration. I produced music, blah, blah, blah. I had an instrumental fleshed out for release, but she's an amazingly talented singer, obviously, pardon the pun, and just poet and just writer. So she wrote the words to Subtle Pulse and the melody that fit the theme, the chord progression, and we worked together, and I'm just really proud of it. And it was one of my favorite collaborations to date. She's based out west in Washington. Yeah.
Okay. I just felt like her voice with your music was such a strong pairing. And so I was really interested to know how that came about. And it's strange to me that you guys just kind of met recently, because I felt like it meshed so well. I thought, oh man, these two must have been collaborating for a long time, because it really did feel like a perfect marrying of mood and tone of voice. And so it's amazing to me that you guys were able to get that kind of feel to the song, having not known each other for that long.
Well, it's really nice of you. She's somebody I would love to collaborate with again, just because her unbelievable talent and her flexibility. It's not easy. You can work with a lot of well-known, established, amazing artists that want things that are very rigid-minded. I've been blessed to collaborate with a variety of very flexible, really kind, hardworking, thoughtful, creative individuals, and she's one of them. And she just sort of came my way this past year. And although it took us a number of months to kind of get the song rolled out and released.
Well, and I felt like it was also very, I don't know if generous is the right word, but that's what keeps coming to mind. As a person that is creating primarily instrumental music, I feel like it is very generous of you to allow someone to add lyrics to that. How does that feel for you? Does it feel like a generous act? Does it feel like it's enhancing the song? Are there some songs that you've created where you're like, never would I let anybody add lyrics to this because it would ruin it? How do you approach that? Anybody that's ever listened to the show knows I'm a huge lyrics gal. It's something that has always really drawn me to music. Yet I still found myself feeling so grateful to be lost in your instrumental world, because the creativity that it spawned in my mind was so freeing and so fun. So I wonder what your feeling is on lyrics. Like, do you feel like it enhances? Are there some songs that are so precious you would never let anyone add lyrics to?
I'm obviously partial towards instrumental music because, I mean, I am a producer, so there's that flexibility of bringing in singers. But just because I've been born and bred and raised on violin, that's sort of my main frame of mind. But I'm not so stubborn. I'm not such a stubborn individual. You know, I'm pretty flexible when it comes to working with other talent, and I don't see myself as like above as the producer. I don't think that really bodes well for a quality collaboration. And when you're in the mentality of a collaboration, it's a business partnership, really. You know, you're sharing each other's fans, and what the other artist produces is more than likely not going to be what you had perceived initially, what I had perceived. And that's happened a number of times, like such as in the case of Misirlou. Subtle Pulse also, I created my version of a vocal, like my vocal version of the song. And then I heard hers. She was like, well, let me kind of rewrite this. And I liked hers a whole lot more. So I feel fortunate that she came along and made the song better. So I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your question.
No, I love it. I'm super interested. Like I said, I just wondered, like, is there a song though that you feel like, no way, I would never let anybody overlay lyrics on this?
I mean, I don't think Neon Dreams would be the best type of song for lyrics, but if somebody came along and, you know, said, hey, I think it could sound better, and then they showed me what it would sound, I'd be interested in hearing. But I can't hear it at the moment.
Yeah, no, I like that though. I like that you're completely open to like, yeah, if it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to let somebody put crappy lyrics in there, but if it's good, yeah, I'll entertain that idea.
Pretty much.
Well, we've teased it a lot here in the show, so we'll close out the show by speaking a little bit more in depth about your version of Misirlou. Like, I had to include this song because it's such a well-known song, and I have to tell you, it wasn't until about 30 seconds into the song, into your version of it, that I even realized what it was. And then, of course, once it kicks in, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is Misirlou. And for those of you, I think a lot of people aren't maybe familiar with the title of the song, but the song was originally made incredibly popular by Dick Dale, which again is made famous by every surfing video in the world and Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
You know, but in researching the show, I learned that it's actually a folk song from like the Eastern Mediterranean region, which probably the name should have tipped me off, but I just never thought of it. And so I'm interested again, since you're very prolific in creating original music, why a cover? Why this song? How did this one come about?
Well, as you may have seen from my catalog, I have these intervals of original covers, and I even switch up genres at different points just to make things interesting and just to kind of touch as many fans as possible. And Misirlou, it came time. I had actually heard a version of Misirlou that I really liked, and I thought, okay, I want to make this more. I want to cater this more to the violin, and so I went crazy with this production and made it sort of like a semi rock symphony. Although the original version, which is actually on my website, asherlaub.com, is not a rock version. It's more like a traditional epic cinematic type of production of this, I think, originally Greek tune. And so and then I was invited to do a performance. I think it was around March, a concert, and it was like a younger group, like we're talking like adolescence type age. And I was thinking like, what's gonna rock this stage, you know, as a violinist, because there are also some singers I was sharing the stage with before and after, and I was just going through my catalog and I was thinking, okay, maybe Neon Dreams, whatever. Misirlou was like, I felt it. My heart was pumping when I was just. This is where I produce my music, by the way,
Yes.
where I was just sort of producing different versions of what I think would sound good on stage. It was all kind of made within a week. 3 consecutive days of like no sleep. And in the end, yeah, what you'll hear on my website is what I was pretty proud of. And then once I worked out a new version with Ginny Luke and Johannes Skurchacher out in LA, they made it a bit heavier, a little more hardcore, and that speaks to like an older kind of audience. Yeah, that's sort of how I was born. Misirlou.
I loved it. And I thought it was such a cool take on the song, which, you're so used to that being a guitar line, and so to hear it as a violin piece, it just sounded so cool. That also leads me to sort of maybe my final question before we bring it home is, when did you're a classically trained violinist, you were playing with the Philharmonic as barely a teenager. What made you decide to electrify? When did you decide like, oh yeah, you know what, the traditional violin isn't getting me everything I need. I want to play electric violin.
It's a really good question. It was a very natural process. I started playing pretty large bandstands. I was getting paid to play at pretty decent venues in the New York tri-state area, and I found that the violin, just within like a few gigs, that like this is not going to work. The feedback issues, the sound engineers, as educated as they are about mixing, they don't know how to mix an acoustic violin. So I got an electric, and it took me about 15 years to actually make it sound like an acoustic and also have the versatility of an electric guitar and blah, blah, blah. It really fit on stage properly. So it was something that was demanded by my career, and it was something I had no choice. But just because I've spent a whole lot of years, I'd say 2,000 gigs later, I am proud of the choice that I made. A lot of people, they sort of stick to the authentic acoustic violin. I stick to it in the studio. I think there's nothing quite like it. But when it comes to live performances, it's like a no-brainer. The electric has more versatility, more volume control, sound control. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always interested in that question, but it's for a different reason. I'm based in Austin, Texas. And so oftentimes I'll talk to classically trained violinists that now play the fiddle. Right. And so like a different version of the same instrument. Yeah. And so it's always, that question is always interesting to me, of how you sort of make the transition from this very like classically trained background with an instrument that's so complex and has such a rich history and sounds so haunting and beautiful. I think the choice to take it to one extreme end or the other, whether it's fiddle or electrifying, is just such a cool, it's a cool process to me. And again, as a person that's not a musician, I'm always fascinated by sort of how that transition happens.
I wish there were more people out there like you. People appreciate the instrument, but I'm saying non-musicians that appreciate the instrument, that have a passion for the instrument. That's something that like touches my heart. And I know is exciting to hear from a lot of the studio producers and musicians that I work with.
Yeah, it's just cool. It's cool when somebody takes something that, I think traditionally, especially with classically trained musicians, you're really trained to kind of stay in your lane. And whenever you're like, no, I have a little more creativity than that. Yeah. And I'm not saying those people that are classically trained are not wildly creative. Mm-hmm. Of course they are. Mm-hmm. I just always like it when people take kind of a left turn, and do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Well, Asher, thank you so much for sharing your music with us. And I think you've got some re-releases coming back up. Tell me a little bit about what's coming up for you before we tease where people can find your music, and tell our listeners how they can dig in a little bit more into what you do.
Sure. So I have a piece, Atlantis, which I cannot believe it disappeared. And A Brighter Day Ahead also, another song that I got a pretty cool music video out on YouTube, as well as Atlantis. Awesome. So those are going to be re-released, I think, on the same day, in about a week and a half or so. So around the 14th
of November. Okay.
Or actually might be even earlier, like the 7th or 8th. I have to double check, but it's going to be very, very early, very soon. And it's just being distributed as we speak. So please stay tuned for that. And if you really want to hear it now, you can just go to my website. It's there, asherlaub.com. But in terms of the distribution on all major platforms, it'll be out within about a week.
Excellent. Well, listeners, to keep up with Asher's latest releases, like we said, explore his catalog of music, check out his daily social media reels, posts, music videos, interviews, everything you want to know can be found at found.asherlaub.com. And that's ASHERLAUB. So you can find everything there, and definitely check out some of those music videos. You also have a really cool, I'm going to shout this out too, a Michael Jackson like Bollywood performance that I love that I saw on YouTube. That's really cool. So check that out. And as always, please be sure to follow, download, and share this show. And if you love listening, please drop us a review on Apple or Spotify. It really does help. And last but not least, to stay informed on all things Super Awesome Mix and what are you listening to, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Thanks for listening, and please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.